All right. Alli Scully is a proud Canadian advisor. You can find her helping students reach their educational, career, and personal goals as an academic advisor at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. She's also the chair of the NACADA Canadian Advising Community and part of the planning committee for the 2021 Global Advising Week with NACADA. Alli completed her Master of Science in Academic Advising from Kansas State University and still fangirls when her former professors, Dr. Wendy Troxell and Dr. Lisa Rubin, comment on her Facebook posts. A self-professed resource queen, Alli loves finding and creating tools to elevate advising sessions and learning new creative ways to reach students. Alli is honored, and I am reading a spelling, apparently Canadian spelling with a U, to be part of the Adventures in Advising podcast, as she is a longtime subscriber and hopes to become BFFs with Matt and Colum. Alli, how are you?
I'm good. Are we best friends yet?
I think we are.
Yeah, I think we're well on the road. I think by the end of the interview, I have no doubt, but we will be. And you are very welcome. We are delighted to have the opportunity to chat to you. And if you've listened before, you know how we always begin. We're interested in hearing about, how you came to work in higher ed, Alli.
That's a good question. I actually worked in marketing for 12 years before that, and just kind of kept having this existential crisis of not liking my job, switching jobs. I worked in the music industry, so I kept kind of going to the next cool thing. And then I kind of did some soul searching and met with a career counselor, paid some big bucks, and realized that higher ed and advising was where I wanted to go. But in Canada, it's a new thing still. Other than career advising, there's not a lot of academic advising. That's changing rapidly. So I didn't really know what education to follow. And then my boss let me know about the NACADA academic advising, and it kind of just set me on that path forward. So it's been about 7 years now that I've been in higher ed.
Nice. And I know back in January, we were all chatting through social media about the possibility of bringing on a guest from the Canadian advising community. And now, of course, from your standpoint, you were thinking of it in terms of within your network, you know of many advisors that could be great on the podcast. And so I know when we were asking, hey, well, would you like to be on the podcast? I was like, whoa, well, do you really want me on it? And yes, we did. And so we're glad that you said yes and that you're here today with us. And so my question for you is, back in 2019, you had wrote a blog post titled Q Vitamin C Graduation Song. And for those who don't know, that is like the graduation song in the early 2000s. And I would assume it's still around here and there today. But the singer, I think Vitamin C, pretty much did the song based on how friends drift apart after graduation. And now your blog post was about kind of your journey with your master's program. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Thank you for reading my blog post. One of 5 people, but that's awesome. So it was an interesting journey because I knew when I finished university, which was a long time ago, that a master's was in my future. I just couldn't figure out what it was going to be in. So it was a long journey for me to figure out, I knew if I was going to be working full time, there's going to be a big commitment. So what was I going to be passionate about? So I was excited when I found that academic advising, and I knew I'm excited for this. I see the goal coming. It's going to be hard, but let's do this. It was 3.5 years. I took one course every semester and worked full time. So it was a slow struggle, but it was honestly the best 3.5 years. It's so much self-fulfillment and knowledge, and just excited to take what I was learning and apply it to my job. And now looking back, I'm like, what should I do next? But yeah, it was a long time coming to figure out what I wanted to do. But once I was there, it was honestly the best experience.
And for listeners who, are hearing about that master's and thinking, that sounds interesting, and Alli's saying really good things about it, what sort of stuff did you cover during your studies, Alli?
That's a good question. I like the way you say my name. We covered basically everything you would need to know about advising. So, as you guys know, advising varies very differently from each school. So it focuses more on the broader picture. So working with multicultural students, working with students with diverse needs, students with disabilities, student athletes as well, assessment of advising, research as well, the foundations and the theory of advising. One of my favorite courses was the interpersonal relations course. So it was kind of learning those micro counseling skills and how you can use those in advising. I think that one definitely elevated my abilities as an advisor greatly. So that's the quick turnaround, but it's kind of the bigger picture of advising and how you can really, support students on a big scale.
Absolutely. And in your bio, you gave a shout out to both Dr. Wendy Troxell and Dr. Lisa Rubin. And so they were both former professors of yours. How was each of their teaching styles, and what did you like most, or I guess learn about with their classes or in their classes?
Yeah, it's funny. I've never been I guess I've always been a teacher's pet, but I've never been obsessed with teachers. But because at work in Canada, people aren't interacting with the NACADA names and the researchers and the Dr. Troxells and Rubins. So if we would go on a conference and I'd be like, that's my teacher, kind of gave me some cred. So it's really cool to see, I'm reading research about someone and they're teaching me in my next class. Both of them were amazing. So brilliant in what they do, but also so caring for their students and going that extra mile. So I had already finished the assessment course with Dr. Troxell and was so excited about what she taught that I then pitched to my boss of, let's do this huge assessment project in 4 months. And I just kept reaching out to Dr. Troxell to be like, what do you think about this? Should I put a not applicable option, that sort of thing? And she would answer me in 2 seconds. So that was really cool. And Dr. Rubin, I think, was excited that I was a Canadian, because then we could kind of use the Canadian resources that support athletes and bring that aspect into it. But yeah, now that I'm on Facebook for advising and they'll comment or message me, it's just it's pretty cool.
Well, they're both fabulous people and do great work. And one of the things you mentioned, I suppose, the Canadian aspect there and how that was of interest. And I suppose delving a little bit more into that, you're the chair of the Canadian advising community. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as you probably know, the NACADA has different communities, and many of them are very specific on topics or type of student you work with. So ours is a bit unique in that it's just Canadian advising, so there's no specific area, but it's a really great community, and the steering committee, where there's about 12 of them, so we're small but mighty, and just kind of finding ways to get NACADA into the conversation, letting people know about the research and opportunities available, and making advising a profession that's looked upon seriously, and that there are, research and theories and things that we should be referring to. So we, similar to other communities, put on events that try to bring together everyone. We've had 500 people show up for these web events, which has been amazing, and it keeps growing. So it's really cool to kind of, although we don't have those more narrowed down topics, it's cool just to come together and learn from each other.
And then you're in your first year as chair?
Yes.
So I guess, being in your first year as chair of the advising community, maybe can you go more into what are some of the goals of the community, and so far, how has it been for you with your duties as chair?
I've been really lucky, and Shay Ellingham was my predecessor, if that's the right word. And she has been so good at helping me kind of understand how things work and who to talk to and what will be effective. So I've been very lucky, and she's mentoring me and kind of not just fading into the background, even though she's extremely busy. So that's been helpful. So I would say for any new chair, if you can find either the previous chair or another chair to kind of have that relationship with, it's great. Our goals, and Shay kind of worked on this, is to connect, learn, and share. So with everything we do, we try to find ways to connect Canadian advisors, share our knowledge. A lot of different schools are doing cool things. Some schools are new to advising and some have been around for a while. So trying to share those best practices and then just learning from each other, especially in this weird virtual world right now where it's all new. Some of us have learned some great things and other ones are struggling in something that the other person has already tackled. So just finding opportunities to do the connect, share, and learn.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, one of the events that was held recently was a compassion fatigue event. Can you talk a little bit about that, who was involved? And I don't know, were you able to attend or was there any takeaways that you have from that event?
Yeah, so that was a very popular event. We had a lot of Americans join us as well. So that one, I mean, we just did an outreach to our community to ask, who would like to do a presentation. And Brandy stepped forward because she had just completed training in compassion fatigue. So we were very excited. And obviously, it's a very important topic. I actually hosted it and there was a lot of technical problems. So what did I learn from that is practice breakout rooms and figure out how they work before you do it. But it was, again, I think I heard so much feedback from people that just to have an event that labels what we're experiencing and being able to see that there's 500 other people that are experiencing the same thing, I think just normalized it and made people realize, like, I'm not alone in this feeling of that compassion fatigue. So I think that was the biggest piece of, like, we're in this together.
Yeah, and it's all about adapting, especially with that technology, and especially however things are going to go in the next few months or into next year. Do you think, based off the feedback of this like webinar, that you might have like more of a series of these, or?
Yeah, and we were thinking that originally of doing like wellness piece. But the community, the well-being and retention advising community, is doing, again, such amazing things that I'm trying to promote their stuff as much as I can to encourage Canadians to attend those. I almost don't want to kind of reinvent the wheel if they're doing such a good job. But I think definitely in my second year as chair, that's something we'll look at. If the Canadians aren't attending those events, then maybe we need to start doing more of those for sure, because they're very popular. So
when I was doing some research for this interview, I stumbled across mention of an advisor training conference, and it listed you as the contact, and I found that intriguing, and I'm really interested in hearing more about it.
Oh, I'm still having nightmares about advisor training conferences. Yeah. So in my old role at Humber College, which was in Toronto, so it's a small community 2-year college, and we have a lot of faculty advisors there. So we just started having the role of career and student success advisors, but there was a lot of other people doing advising on campus. So realized that we, as the Department of Career and Student Success Advisors, were kind of the experts that had access to NACADA and more resources. So finding a way to train the other advisors so that best practices were happening across campus. So it started off as just like a one-day, I think 5 or 6 years ago, a one-day event that was really just to bring people in. We had some speakers, and it just blew up originally to a 2-day event, and I've been a part of the planning committee since day one. But then recently, when we went virtual, we did, I think it was 3 weeks of virtual events, something pretty much every day. And the good thing about that is we were able to have speakers from NACADA. We had the people from Utah that did the the blunt empathy one, so delivering bad news. I think it was Brigham Young University. So they were able to come. We had some other people from across the states in NACADA that could speak. And then also getting people from Humber College with expertise and knowledge and best practices to kind of share that. So it's a great way to get Humber together, get them to realize how seriously we take advising as a profession, and share kind of new research, knowledge, best practices. So it's a great way to kind of bring everyone together.
Yeah, and so you mentioned your previous institution, and now you're at McMaster University. And we asked Michael Giroux from UAlbany this, and how was it like going from, transitioning from one institution to the other? Like you have, of course, different culture climate in terms of like each institution, different academic policies, whether it's private, public, that kind of thing. How was it for you to make that decision to move to McMaster and that transition?
Yeah, so I'm in my second-ish month. What are we at? 2.5 months now. So it's obviously the first job I've done where it's been completely virtual. I'm surprised at how well I've been able to integrate with the team. I think having, Microsoft Teams that we use to chat with each other is a really great way to get to know each other. So yeah, I'm surprised at how easy that transition has been in terms of like feeling a part of a team that I've never actually met. But I find that the transition in the job was not that difficult. Although I was at a college, and in Canada, most schools are public, government funded. So although I was at a college and now I'm at a university, so in Canada, college isn't the same as the US version of college. It's a 2-year post-secondary diploma. So it's a bit different. Now we're at 4 years at the university. But I mean, the core of it's the same, right? And the skills I got from the master's program of advising students and knowing what questions are going to come up are the same. The biggest difference for me was at Humber, we didn't do the nitty-gritty like scheduling of courses, registering students, enrolling, doing reports. We were just kind of the success advising piece. So I think that's the biggest part of learning the new systems that they use, learning what reports and of course the policies for that school. But I find also, like before I started at the school, the biggest tip I would give to someone if they're switching jobs or institutions is look at the handbooks, look at the policies ahead of time so that you can know at least that core information before you start getting all the other new info in your brain.
I think that's certainly solid advice, and probably good advice for anything that we're doing is read the handbook. Alli, can I take you back though, maybe just to your previous role? Because I know one of the things was that you advise students around using social media. So for career, in terms of their career, and for listeners, I'm sure there might be listeners out there who would be advising students in that or interested in that topic. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and maybe kind of examples of resources that people could look for further information?
Yeah, so I think my path was different in that I started off as kind of in the career world first. So I did placement advising, and then that led me into the career resource developer, which was a lot of helping students understand social media and how they can use that in their job search. And then I've just been able to use that continually, whether I was a career advisor or now as an academic advisor, because it comes up. And as you know, as academic advisors, those career questions, obviously, you can't leave them out, and you do need to help students because it's tightly tied together. I mean, the biggest tip, I don't think it's a shocker, is everyone's going to see what you put on social media. So although you're probably, as students, used to sharing everything that comes through your brain, don't do that. And I think, like for me, I wasn't on Facebook for years, but now I've gone on Facebook as just a professional advisor and using that specifically for my professional piece. And that's how I've been able to connect with both of you. So I think social media is a great way in the advising profession, even to connect with people that you may never get to meet or talk to, especially after going to conferences. You can connect from there. But with students, it's important because it's a great way to find jobs. It's a great way to connect and network with employers or people that you may eventually want to work with that you, again, would never get to talk to. And it's a great way to learn about companies and what they're about and what their values are. And just helping students understand the difference between the professional social media and lock down that personal one or get rid of it completely.
Yeah, great tips. And now that you're at McMaster University, can you give a little bit of background about McMaster University for listeners who may not know about your institution and I guess with your role as an academic advisor, the types of student populations that you're working with? Yeah,
so McMaster is in Hamilton, which is about 45 minutes from Toronto. And it is a research school. It's about mid-sized. It's got about 33,000 students, undergraduate and graduate. And I work with the nursing students. So I'm the academic advisor with the Bachelor of Science nursing students. So in that role, obviously, I work with high achieving students that had, great in science and had really high marks to get into our program. Interesting, yesterday I went to a session by NACADA on how to support high achieving students on probation, and that was very helpful for me in this role, because you've got, students that were great in high school and then they come to university and realize, I don't have the skills that I thought I had to do well in these intensive science courses. So although a big piece and most of the questions I get from students is, if I fail this class, what does that mean for next year? So they think their question is just like a scheduling registration question. Of course, as we know, then I'm able to be like, okay, why are you failing that class? What's going on in your life? What supports do you need? How are you studying? What learning skills could you be helping? Can you go to tutoring? All of those things. So I think the students are always surprised that my response is like, let's jump on a video call because there's a lot that we have to talk about here, when they just think it's like, if you fail, you can't take this course. So I think that's interesting, and maybe a piece that they weren't getting before until the understanding of what advising could be has started expanding in Canada.
I imagine, Alli, there will be a lot of nodding going on to that last answer, where people are saying, "Oh, I received an email that seemed like a simple question, and the advisor realized I probably need to delve a little bit deeper here." I mean, that I have that experience a lot with even say immigration queries, and it seems like immigration query, you delve a little bit deeper, and it unveils itself to be something else. Now, one of the things Matt mentioned in your bio was that you are involved in helping to plan for the Global Advising Week, which by the time this episode comes out will be just a few weeks down the road. Can you talk to us a little bit about your involvement and what events you are helping to plan?
Yeah, so I got looped in again. Shay tapped me on the shoulder so that we had a Canadian representative. So I'm helping out with the games and the self-care aspect. I love games. I love Kahoot. I love anything virtual. I think that's why I'm doing so well in this COVID-19 world, because I love Zoom and games. So the games piece, every day, Monday to Friday, we're going to have different games, whether it's Kahoot, we've got bingo, we got a scavenger hunt, we've got a pet portal. So if you've got an animal, you can bring it with you and introduce them to everyone. We've got a Charlie Nutt tribute Kahoot at the end as well, as a tribute to him. And there'll be prizes. We're going to do live prizes and not live. So we know, obviously, with different time zones, not everyone can join at the same time. So if you can't join live, there will be ways on social media to join as well and see if you win. And then the self-care side is having activities where the advisors are actually doing the self-care activity and not just sitting and watching and learning and then maybe never doing it. So one of them is learning about gratitude and how great that is for you as an advisor in self-care, and then learning how to actually make your own cards, your own thank you cards, which is really cool. We've got doodling, so that's a new trend. I don't know, I've been doodling myself, even though I can't draw. So we've got Dr. John Sauter doing that. Apparently he's a doodling pro. So coming in and just learning simple doodles and how that can help you with self-care if you just need to de-stress. And again, you don't need to be a good drawer to join that. We've got happy hour coloring happening. So we noticed that one of the communities was doing that and is quite popular. So we've asked them to do that as well. So you just bring anything that you want to color, and it's just a way to, again, to connect with advisors. And then we'll have resources online as well with different meditations and self-care tools that you can use.
Yeah, and I think NACADA members have received a few emails, and it just seems like, there's going to be a lot of different things, something for everybody during that week. And so hopefully we're able to plan ahead and block some time on our schedules. And because I know for many of us, probably registration is coming up with our fall term. So yeah, but a lot of great stuff that's going to be offered. Now, you had mentioned in your bio that you love to find creative tools and elevate advising sessions and learn new creative ways to reach students. Can you talk more about maybe some of those ways you've been able to do that, especially with how things have been in the world?
Yeah, and that was one of the best things that I got from the master's program is the tools and resources that I didn't even know existed that I could take and be inspired by and make to work for my students. So, as much as we want to ask questions and have the student reflect and talk back to us, I find, especially with the career piece, but also the academic piece of like having them write things down. So I love making worksheets that help guide their thoughts, help them have something to look back to afterwards, whether it's like an academic advising plan of like, okay, here's a list of resources you could use, which ones, and how do you find them? So they have that. Even if they crinkle it up and put it in their pocket after, I think even just having that reflection time. A lot of career ones as well, the self-reflection and thinking about their dreams and goals. Study habits I find are really good with worksheets. I love to ask students like write down how you study, and then we kind of compare that with what they could be doing, and doing some self-assessments as well. Like a lot of students will say like, I studied so well, I did all the things, I don't know why I'm failing. So I'm like, okay, let me pull out my 1-page self-assessment. And it's like, here's all the things you should be doing. And then they haven't checked any of them off. So that's kind of an eye-opener for them, more so than if I just preach to them, like, you should be doing X, Y, Z. If they see it on paper and realize they're not doing it, it's more impactful. So a big project for me when we went virtual was taking all of my resources and making them either fillable or like on a Word document or something that they could use on their computer, especially they don't all necessarily have Adobe and that sort of thing. So just finding ways to make those resources and then finding new ones. So like Powtoons, have you guys heard of Powtoons? Yeah. No? Okay. So maybe it's just a Canada thing. I don't know. But Powtoons is a really cool, you can do a lot of free stuff on there. But I talked my boss into getting us a subscription, the education one. So it was cheaper. And you can make videos, really easy explainer videos. You can make characters that look like you. So I helped my team at Humber make everyone had their own video of like, hey, I'm an advisor and this is how I can help you. And they really like that. I think advisors really like it. I get so much feedback from advisors because I put it in my signature of like, that's cool. So, finding ways to, do the resources online was one of the funnest things.
Well, you have done a fantastic job at it. So kudos to you on that. I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, you have a B.T. Barnum quote. No one ever made a difference by being like everyone else. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it is about that speaks to you?
I feel like you guys have done such good research. I don't know if you can see it behind me. I have that quote behind me too. I know this won't be because it's no video, but I love that. I think I struggled a lot when I started working because I'm an introvert and I tend to pretend that I'm an extrovert, but I'm not. After this session, I'll probably go have a nap, to be real. So I think I struggled a lot when I first started working, thinking I had to fit into this box of like who I should be, how I should dress, what my personality should be. And I really struggled with that. And I think working in the music industry too, there's like a certain type of person that you can picture that, loves partying and loves, and I love going to concerts, but I'm not necessarily a partier. So feeling like I didn't quite fit in. So I think that was a big piece for me when I was doing my career counseling of like, what job can I find that I will feel like I can be myself? But even working in higher ed, there's that pressure of feeling like you have to dress this certain way or, be this certain person depending on where you work. And as I've seen at different departments I've worked in, different schools, different faculties, that changes, even if it's the same school. So I think the best thing for me, because I am more mature and have more experience of being okay with who I am and knowing that I can still do a good job being myself, being a little sarcastic, a little shy sometimes, and helping students realize that they have amazing qualities, they have strengths, helping them tap into that and not feel like they're not good enough in a certain way because of what they think they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and so right now, I mean, we're in April. Not that you have any definite answers from your institution, but How are things looking at your institution because like right now you're still remote, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are things looking in the next few months?
It changes every day. We are officially in lockdown right now. So I know, Matt, you just got your second vaccine. We are told to stay home and not leave our houses unless we need to exercise or get food or get medicine. So it's not looking good right now, but it seems like the chatter is back at fall. I mean, not necessarily at McMaster, but just in Canada or Ontario, is like, we're going to be back in fall. And I can't tell if that's just chatter or if that's legitimate or what that looks like. So I would say it changes every day. Every time I have a meeting with my boss, it's a different message. It seems like they want to obviously get students back to campus. It probably won't be full-time. The class sizes are going to be limited. We were all told we would have vaccines by September, but I haven't even had my first one yet. My mom just got her first one and she's in her 70s, so we're a little behind. So my answer to that is, I don't know.
How's it been for like when students, and I'm sure a lot of other institutions, other advisors have gone through this too, where, students are asking, hey, do you know? And it's like, well, I don't, but here's some things that I might know, or, how have those conversations been? They're
weird because it's like, I build a relationship with the students and I want to be honest with them of like, I know it sucks that we don't know. I think even when we first went off, I was supervising like 10 student workers. And I was so consumed with like, how come no one's telling me what's going on? They must know something, and realizing that I hadn't even communicated to my students who are freaking out just as much as me. So even now it's the same thing, right? So I found that I have to be very kind of closed lips a little bit because I don't want to give them a casual, like, maybe someone mentioned this, and then they run with it and tell all their students in their group chat that Allison, our advisor, said we're coming back. So I just have a go-to of when I hear, you'll hear. They'll announce it on email. Check out this FAQ on our website, and then just kind of stop. But then, of course, have empathy for them if they're struggling with it. But yeah, being quite tight-lipped because it's true. I don't know anything.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult, the uncertainty and not knowing. And I think we would all like there to be some sort of on-campus experience, whatever that might look like. But we don't know. Alli, we mentioned a couple of times throughout the interview that you had worked in the music industry, and in digging I found that you worked in HMV once upon a time, which I did also way back when in my college days. I know obviously there were struggles with the music industry that you mentioned, but were there fun aspects to working within the industry?
Yes, which is probably why I stayed in it so long. It was such a weird industry because I joined. All I heard was stories of like, oh, we'd had the biggest Christmas parties and we would, this celebrity would come hang out and have lunch with us. And then I joined right at the time when like cutbacks were happening and you never knew if you'd have a job the next day. So it was a bit of a roller coaster, but free concert tickets. I got to meet John Mayer, who I love. And, just doing cool things, getting access to music CDs. That was a thing back then. And HMV was cool. I worked at the head office and got to like work with the different stores as well. We launched like an online digital music site. So that was really cool because it was almost like I was the enemy because I was doing like the online music store, but then still making relationships so that people still liked me because I want them to still have jobs. So yeah, but no, it was really cool. And yeah, lots of fun stuff.
Yeah, sad thing is there's people that are like, what are CDs?
I know. None of you, though. You guys know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I was around when we had the cassettes.
Okay, good.
We had to use the pencil to rewind it. Yep.
When you heard your favorite song on the radio and you wanted to record it on your tape.
And I would always get upset if the DJ kept talking as the song was playing. And I was like, no, now I got to listen like for probably a whole couple more hours and see if it can record again. But
that's the worst.
But those are some fun days.
Yeah.
And as we kind of wind down with the interview, like, you talked a lot about the NACADA Canadian Advising community. If advisors, want to help with some of those goals or be a part of that advising community, how can they get involved?
Good question. So we're on Facebook, so you can just search Canadian Advisors, and you should find it. We've got NACADA Canadian Community. You can Google that, and you should get to our website, which will have a lot of information about our events and resources and how to contact me. Best way is probably to contact me. So my email is Scully, SCULLY .Alli, ALLI @gmail.com. I just switched jobs, so I figured Gmail was better than doing my new email. So that's the best way. And of course, we're always looking for steering committee members, people to join our events and help us come up with ideas to connect, learn, and share with each other. So yeah, don't be afraid. Reach out. We want you.
I think there'll be plenty of listeners who'll be inspired by your creativity and innovation and will definitely want to reach out. And I think, we can say at the end of the interview, we're definitely friends. So we need to hang out at some point, and maybe we can craft friendship bracelets when we're next all in the same place, whenever that may be. Alli,
don't tease me.
This has been, well, no, it'll happen eventually. It will.
2028.
By the time Alli and I get vaccines, maybe, but it will happen. And look, this has been a pleasure, Alli. We'll definitely have you on again at some point in the future. But thank you for taking the time to chat to us today.
Thank you.